welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about self-publishing my very first short story collection, Fairy Tales and Space Dreams. So I'm going to give you a brief rundown of the stories that I've decided to include in the collection. So I decided on the title Fairy Tales and Space Dreams because the first half of the collection are stories that are fantasy and fairy tales, and the second half of the stories are science fiction. The first story in the collection is called Princess Snow White, and it is less a plain retelling of Snow White and more a meditation on beauty and Eurocentric standards as the top tier beauty. Because even though the original Snow White had skin as white as snow and hair as black as ebony, mine is the opposite. She has hair as white as snow and skin as black as ebony, and that plays some major roles in her interactions with her adopted European family. The next story is called The Sea and the Stars, and it is a love story between a mermaid and a star. The next one and the last fantasy story is called Rapunzel the Night Maiden, in which Rapunzel has a very interesting family secret that her mother is keeping from her, and that's about as much as I want to say without giving away too much. Then there are the three science fiction stories, the first of which is called Omega Star Genesis. It's my favorite title that I've ever come up with. And in this one, humans are migrating from Earth. Earth is dying, everything is dying, there's a virus that is killing everything. And the title is called Omega Star Genesis because is the idea of the last star, the last solar system. They are migrating, that's why it's called Genesis, because they are moving to a new planet, Alpha Centauri B. And the last two stories are connected. The one is called The Cosmic Adventures of Sophie Zatilde, and the last one is called Evangelina's Dream. And both of them together, they take place in the same world, and it chronicles the tales of a character named River, who is a normal human, or so he thinks, until he learns otherwise when he is confronted with a space unicorn named Sophie Zatilde. So moving on to the next step of self-publishing this but short story collection, and it is to build up the platform. So I already have my brand, which is pretty much my Facebook page, Black Girls Belong in Fantasy and Sci-Fi, that I built up my YouTube channel, and I have a Twitter presence, and I more or less have a blog. And these aren't avenues to just like hard sell your book, like buy my book, and nobody will ever listen to you if that's the case. I think that a lot of it has to do with building a community, building an audience, and sort of like communicating with other authors and other people who have published, and finding other writers who are writing things that you are interested in, and then sort of putting yourself out there because you might be writing something that someone has been waiting a long time for. And how are they going to find that if you don't sort of put yourself out there on these social media avenues? So that's what I have been trying to do. Well, that's sort of an ongoing thing. The next thing I want to talk about is editing and beta reading. So before you get to the beta reading stage, you want to edit and revise your work multiple times, which is what I did. Each story has gone through multiple steps of revisions, adding scenes, subtracting scenes. There were actually going to be a lot more stories in this collection, and I chopped them off. Especially after the first round of beta reading, I sort of listened to things that they've said, things that a lot of people were saying about the same stories. And so a lot of the stories that a lot of people they thought were underdeveloped per se, then I sort of cut them because they're not as strong as the other stories, and I feel like I can wait a little longer to build them up. You could say that I could have taken them out, built them up, and then added them to the collection, but there would have been no way for me to do that, seeing as that I am self-publishing, and I am quite poor. I would have had to raise a lot more money because editing goes by word count, and there was a certain word count that I did not want to go over. So with stories like Rapunzel and Snow White, which I expanded, especially Rapunzel, I expanded from 11 pages to I think 29 pages. There was simply no room. I went through the first round of beta reading, cut some stories, added some things to the stories that made it, and then did some more final edits before the next beta reading stage. So I had a second beta reading stage. They gave me their feedback, I revised my stories accordingly, and then I had to send it off to the professional editor. That's where crowdfunding comes in. So, like I've said several times, I have $0. So I had to use GoFundMe, and I think I've said before, maybe in the first or second video, that I hate asking for money. Crowdfunding is really stressful for me, but it's something that I'm willing to do because writing is my passion, and this project is something that I really care about, and it's something that I really want out there, and the only way for me to do it was to crowdfund, and it took a long time. I started crowdfunding back in October, and every once in a while, when I had maybe a little bit of extra money, I would put it in, maybe some tens of dollars a month. And I have one patron on Patreon who contributes like $14 a month. So that went 100% towards my book. And eventually, after some months, I finally raised enough money. It was tricky because I had to make some close calls, such as keeping my word count really low so that I would be able to raise enough money. My reach as far as crowdfunding is not very big, so I was very much limited to what other people were willing and able to donate to me. So that said, I had to find I had to find an editor that fit in my budget, and then I had to find a professional cover designer that fit my budget. Thankfully I did. I have a friend who I mentioned in another video, my artist friend Joye Cho, who draws all of my book artwork for me, which I obviously pay her for. And then I paid a professional cover art designer that I found on Fiverr, and then I found a professional editor to work on it for me. So yeah. And I really had to shop around for both the cover designer and the editor, because you don't want to go with just the first person that you see, because your project might not be right for them. Their editing style or the way that they create cover art might not be right for you. So I talked to 3 editors before I was able to settle on one that I think would be good for my project and my budget. And I had talked to 2 professional cover designers. And when someone suggested that I look on Fiverr, I thought, well, that doesn't make any sense. I was prepared to pay like $600 or $500 for cover art or cover design, but I thought, okay, why not? I'll look on Fiverr. And I found an artist who's actually really good at what she did, and she created stunning, covers at such a cheap price, and I'm very happy with what she's done for me for my book. So that was all covered. Like I've said before, my very first novel I published completely on CreateSpace, which is 100% free. However, I also hear that Ingram Spark is sort of like is seen as the more professional avenue. And plus, I kind of want to publish my book in a hardcover edition as well, which is not available through CreateSpace, but is available through Ingram Spark. And Ingram Spark is another thing that I had to crowdfund for, because with Ingram Spark you have to provide your own ISBN, and buying an SBN, a single ISBN, is $125. And then you have to pay, I want to say $50 to upload your manuscript to, not CreateSpace, but to Ingram Spark. So that was not cheap. That was another thing that I put into my crowdfunding goal. Did some research on the differences between CreateSpace and Ingram Spark other than the cost. But there are differences in distribution. With Ingram Spark, it's a little easier to get your hardcover book or your paperback book on shelves in bookstores and things. And I think it would be smart to publish through both avenues to have as much of a reach as possible. So my editor is in a bit of a queue. He won't be able to get to my novel. He won't be able to get to my short story until the middle of this month. So that means that gives me some time to figure out, like, I need to find ARC reviewers. And if you don't know what an ARC reviewer is, ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copy. And ARC reviewers are people who read this advanced copy of your book, and they will get it's a free copy, in exchange for giving it an honest review. And a lot of the times ARC reviewers have, book review blogs and things like that. So that will definitely help. And so with the help of ARC reviewers, the free ARC I would like to have at least 25 reviews, because before the book's not made of money. So once if I have the money back to me from the editor, hardcover books, I make all the ARC reviewers. I totally would. And then I make it ready for the ARC reviewers. I need to think of a publishing date, release date, which I think I'll make in June. So between more or less now and June, I would like to have 25 reviews on Amazon, as well as, reviews on book review blogs and websites and things like that, because that will really help, not only just build hype, but if there's a new book that comes out, you want to know what it's about, right? And you want to know if other people think it's any good, and how are you going to know if it's any good if it has no reviews? This is one thing that I did not understand when I published my first novel. Tentative release date in June, where I will be having a book launch party, which I need to start planning. Yeah, that will be the entire process of me self-publishing my book in a nutshell. And that's it for this video. Although I do have one thing. So next weekend, I will be at OhioCon, because I'm a huge nerd. And so that means either next week I will not have a video, or I will have a video that has something to do with me at the anime convention. So I haven't decided yet. If you have a preference, you can comment below or tweet me at BGBFS. So see you next time.